Hello, it's November 28th, 2015, and a few days ago I gave a talk about my 9/11 experience, and it was brief and to the point, and actually there are so many details in that I could use as a springboard of sorts to talk about uh, going through a vision. Um, this idea about the mental health of this country and some of the things I've seen on my path that I think would be very helpful uh, to know and to maybe use as a springboard for some ideas and to get something done about mental health in this country. It's a major factor in everything that goes on here. In everyone's lives, and there are a lot of statistics to back this up. Something that's helpful, and I had mentioned that I was hospitalized, and it's happened to me a few times, but it happened to me when I was very young, in my 20s, when I was having openings to visions that I wasn't prepared for, and every 20 something year old who graduates from college not having mental health problems. Um, I was always on the edge, but I never uh, was immobilized. And these were things that happened to me in my early 20s, which made me realize what my path was. But I always went about it as a professional, with the professional knowledge and skills that I had, because I had a degree in psychology and art. I had, at this time, a nursing degree, and I worked in psychiatry for many years. So I've been on both sides of the fence, which gives me a unique perspective about mental health. But then about what happened to me during 9/11 and being in that place, among the disenfranchised, people clapping and what have you. I've gotten so way beyond that, and it doesn't haunt me anymore. It was very good for me to just sum it up in a short story form, uh, to share something or an important fact about America that we need to look at. But it gave me the reason I said I was glad that it happened or that I was there. I looked over the film and I had said that I was glad that I was there. And that's true. Uh, it gave me a unique perspective on what's happening, and it really always has. Uh, Early in my career, I worked in adolescent psychiatry as a psychiatric nurse and therapist. And that's very relevant. Uh, so, and those years of doing that were it just informed me of what was coming. If you go to any psychiatric unit in the United States or in the world, you will find out what the future is going to be on some level. But most people are very medicated, and I didn't take that path. And because I knew that it would set up a barrier. In fact, I tried it a few times, and it really wasn't getting to. It was more of a journey that I was called upon to, as far as learning was concerned. It was a teaching path. It was a learning path, and anyone who has had a divine experience sometime in their life, I wouldn't believe them unless they said it crushed them first. because I was crushed by some of the experiences I had, which opened me up psychically and showed me that that was a path for me. And so I didn't take medication because it was so important for me to uh, get a grip on all of this and what it was saying to me, what kind of messages I was receiving, why me. There were so many things. Um, but it led me through going through analysis and working in mental health helped me on both sides of the fence. So it was very valuable to me and it provided a lot of insight as to really what's going on in the world. And I don't think we at all get near tackling the problem of violence in this country. And we are seeing um, what people with mental problems do is they tap into the energy a lot sooner than anyone else. And let's take adolescent males. And that's where I come back to this hospitalization I had and why I was glad I was there. Because it was a room filled with every adolescent or young male, I won't say adolescent, they're a little older than that, but in their 20s, and they become disenfranchised, or they have been, and they have mental problems. And they are a type, and I've learned that type, and listening to them, you know, talk and talk and talk, and trying to really see where they were and why, and get insight into really what's going on was very profound to me. Why they were clapping at 9/11 and all of these things, it's very much an archetype that we're dealing with. And we can't underestimate that power. And what we have fed these young men from the time they were born and by the time their brains were developed is something that we have to look at. Because in every psychiatric unit that I've worked, whether it be adult or young people, it's filled with a lot of the same imagery of what our culture provides as education. So, hence the reasons why I say that education, and everybody knows that education is a really big issue, but I'm talking about just general education and what our citizenry means and what it means to have a democracy in a country. That doesn't come across to these people. And should it? It shouldn't, because it doesn't. So we can't pretend something that isn't there. And that's why I think a major movement in this country needs to be away from violence, because we're only going to feed it into this machine, and it's going to come back and haunt us as we see that that's happening. This is an exact play of all the video games they sit and watch that are their babysitters from the time they're very young and developing their brain. And so we have developed this. And I worked in child psychiatry, and I saw it in, I remember some of the patients in the 80s, they were all imitating Michael Jackson, and they were obsessed with him. And, some of the other cultural icons, I just remember these different stages of my employment working in these places. And seeing really disturbed children and disturbed adults. And that room of 9/11 is every one of these young men who have disturbed a movie theater, a shopping center, whatever they decide to take out their drama on. So it is, I think the biggest thing is mental health. And People are focused on their computers and virtual realities and a lot of different things like that. And we need to have a major shift in our thinking that this, our brain power and our psyches are, and what we feed it is going to come out in society. So we better look at that nutrition and see what we're feeding our young policemen and where they lose it and they become like mental patients. And because they're human, and when I say mental patient, it's different than what an outsider says. Someone who's having mental difficulties. I shouldn't have spoken it that way so loosely, because I have a great deal of respect for that area and how influential it is in a society or a culture where 1, 2, 7 people can destroy a city. We better know and care what's going on in people's minds. And we do need to have mental health centers in every community in the United States. If we want to control violence and know what's going on with our citizens. So, this was a major concern to me. And listening to them every day give me a real clue as to what's going on here. And firstly, and by the way, there were only 3 women in the place, and it was over 100 people. This was a unit that split into smaller ones, but there was one main room. And they were all young men of all different races. Race doesn't even matter. Like when you say, oh, Muslims were cheering. No, it's not Muslims that were cheering. It's young men who are disenfranchised and who are violent and psychopathic. And we're developing a lot of psychopaths in our culture. And those are the people who commit the crimes. I don't care what religion you are. It seems to go across all religions and races, and I don't think that's the major point. But when you have young men who have disturbed homes, who are living in poverty, who don't get the right food, who don't get the right nourishment, who nourish themselves on videos and are in that space, they don't even know, have the empathy to tell how another person feels. So this is a major issue that if every community had a mental health center, I think we'd have a different country. What did I want to say next? And a lot of these people, and I didn't mean to say that I don't believe in medication, but I was given a certain path, and maybe one day I'll be able to speak about what happened and why. I've written about it a lot, certainly. But I was meant for a visionary path, and the fact that I kept getting stronger and better each time I had the visions that I did showed a high level of integration. And I was always able to help other people. I've cured a few schizophrenics in my life too, just in working in the places that I did. But I do believe that people need to have medications But certain people, when they're working through certain things, if they really want to get a handle on something, then you really have to go through the analysis and alertness that is necessary. This path requires much work and stamina. And I never smoked marijuana. When I was going into vision, marijuana wasn't something that I would ever do. Um, Still, that happens. I forget about it. I also forget about food and things. So, if I'm really going into vision or a visionary experience, there's a lot of signals beforehand where I know. Um, and that has to really learn yourself and to learn the visionary path. You can't be medicating yourself and putting something in between you and the experience. You have to really learn how to work with it. And so learning how to work with it in the ways that I have uh, has been everything. I feel like I have some real accomplishments in that area. And I feel prepared. And in a lot, this is sort of difficult to say, but I've been prepared for this day where I talk, where I go outward. A lot of the work is inward, and it's a solitary path. And so is being an artist. So they really uh, coordinated well together. And I believe that if I didn't do art and create, I'd probably not be as integrated, and I wouldn't be a well person. So I've helped a lot of people get through their journeys, or what we call spiritual emergencies, or psychosis, or nervous breakdowns, or people who just live on the edge. I've had a lot of experience with that. And until you go through it yourself, you aren't able to help other people. So that's a factor. I have a list here. Oh, I was thinking about this idea of young men, and I want to go back to that. Um, you can, if you look back into ancient cultures, it's real easy to see this archetype that I'm talking about. The young Greek male was the center of existence for a lot of reasons. It's very sensitive. They tap in. Their energy is at a peak. Performance, intelligence. They also are encumbered by a lot of mythology, drama, high drama. Uh, that's why sports are very good for young adolescent males. But if you think about what we feed them in our culture and what we expect of them, it's a wonder that we have sane males. Many of them are abused and are holding that underneath. And not eating right and living in poverty, which is it's a good chunk of the population. This is what we're developing. And that's why I thought that I could contribute and run for office. I'm not interested in being a senator like everyone wants me to be. I couldn't be a senator. Original thinkers aren't senators. Prophets aren't senators. And I'm hesitant in calling myself a prophet, so I'll probably say that for the last time. I'm a reluctant prophet. I would rather call myself a psychic, um, because you have to be pretty highfalutin to call yourself a prophet. And I don't think anybody really knows what that is. And maybe hopefully in a series of being engaged in dialogue, maybe I could let you know what that means. But it's foolhardy to think that or to speak about prophecy so lightly. It's something that's taken very seriously, and it's very powerful. And anyone who says that they've been on a journey and they spend a year or two on it as a traveler or as a tourist, that's not visionary. And when people say, I have a vision, I know, and other visionaries who have gone through that experience know that that word is being used very lightly. And so there are a lot of terms in this that I would like to go into details with. But prophecy is of a certain level that's very different from being a psychic. And when you get notified by a vision, you don't ask for it and you don't travel to it. It comes to you. And I've learned how to take the call. And there's a difference there between seeking that call and receiving a call. And with the information I get, I try to work through it and refine it. And I've had many visions about this country. And they're very exciting, actually. And that's sometimes why my tweets tend to be nasty or harmful, destructive, a little bit. Because I'm trying to break down and provide consciousness, provide avenues to becoming aware of just what's going on here. And if you never destroy anything unless you have a good replacement. And I believe that it's like Naomi Wolf said in her recent book that we have to make major changes. It's not going to happen when we do the carbon things. This is major. And I have received plans all about this for years. And sometimes I've spoken them and get perceived foolishly. And that's okay, because there are people who do see it and who do get it and who do get confirmations about it. And so I would like to lead in creating a better planet and saving the planet. A vision that was even more, that competes with 9/11 came to me when I was 23 years old. And it took me many years to deal with that calling. So even when I'm not in a traditional job, or traditional jobs actually stall what I'm doing because I have to get into a different place to do that. But the work that I do in the visionary realm now is easy because of the struggles that are behind me. And so I believe, that's why I say I believe I've been prepared, and that I'm probably more mentally well than most people. Just in levels of awareness and knowing, being connected to what things mean and where I'm going, what my path is, what the world's really about, and what our government is really about, to face some of those truths and eye-opening wonders. I say, well, you have to chip away in order to bring the new things in. And I believe I'm situated in time between two generations, through actually several generations. But my situation in time has always been a factor. It's one of my websites is called Journey to Kairos, and it's all about time and how I relate to it and how I've traveled in it through visions. And just the fact that I'm here and I am trying to not legitimatize, that's already happened. I'm way past that. But it's about sharing, and it's about helping us get to another place that's better, about helping us recognize the path that we're on and what needs to change about it. And I believe that's leadership. I believe that I have been called to be President of the United States. And it's never been a dream of mine. But this past summer, things happened that made me realize that maybe I'm supposed to do that, and that's one of my callings. I read the life of Václav Havel, Polish president, and how he was a playwright and an artist, and he became president of his country and did a revolution. And it was interesting reading his life and his philosophy and all the details about him made me realize, gee, I'm so much more interesting. He actually was a little like, gee, he did that. Boy, I got this. I don't know if that makes sense. It was just like that's an emotional reaction I had to it. Like, it sort of broke open something like, maybe they need an artist to shape something. And the art of all the things I have been educated in for many years. That's been my path. The process of education. So that's a bit of when it started and why I was given this vision and specifically told it was the United States was a chosen land, and it has a lot to do with Atlantis, and this was very exciting information to me. And it has a lot to do with another major factor, that this generation's going to the moon. You know how our generation had that goal of going to the moon. I remember it happened when I was about 12, something like that. It's a perfect age, to take part in that vision for an adolescent. But I believe that our big vision for this generation, or your big vision, is to be able to control the temperature of the planet. And that was a major factor that I was told many years ago, when I was in my 20s. I was given a lot of information. And that was another reason I didn't want to take medication, because I was afraid of destroying it or forgetting something. And why I wrote everything down as devices to, and it's all very hidden in there. No one would ever be able to, it's not literal. But anyway, I was told that the United States was, and the democracies of the planet were going to save the planet. And the more democracies, the better. But I guess we've learned that you can lead a horse to water, and it can't be done under war. If you want to create this idyllic democracy, no, it doesn't work that way either. It doesn't work under coercion. And it won't work about oil. We've created a whole planet about oil, and all the politics is about it, and it no longer fits us. And I think the Middle East is getting used to the idea that we're not going to need oil, and they better get involved in creating something else beside. It seems like they bully the world a lot with what they have, so the world has learned to do other things. Thank goodness. What I learned originally was that oil and gas were supposed to last 50 years, and something held up that next coming of not needing oil for a car. And I think that that's where Tesla comes in, or some other people. They even had a car that worked on hemp, and that was an interesting project. So I've studied it quite a bit, and we've been entrusted. This generation of pioneers has been entrusted to save the planet. That's for sure. And our big moon goal is not to be spending all of our resources on space, which, I mean, it's great that we do that, but we're not doing it because we're leaving this planet because we've screwed it up. We're going to stay around and fix it. And they like to create these dreams over here, so we don't look at what's going on over here. And what's going on over here is that corporations are poisoning our earth. And they have a certain protocol with the accidents they cause on purpose, and what Monsanto is doing, and all of these destructive chemicals that are going on are corporate controlled, and humans are corporately controlled, and corporations are countries, and it goes on and on. And in order to understand history, you have to be a linguist, historian like Noam Chomsky. In order to understand it, you have to I don't know what you have to do. I can't understand it. I understood art history very well. I saw what happened, and it's right in the image. And the image you see is the history, and it tells the truth. It always does. What this world does is show a different image. Like, we don't have climate change. They'll show you a different image and give you a different title and history. And so the lie isn't right in front of you, and it goes back and back and back and gets more and more pressed down. And so now all the lies and facades are pressed down, and we're competing, and the violence, and we're competing with that in order to save the planet. So, this middle ground of people that I described that believe in a multicultural, multiracial society, these middle people who don't believe in violence and who don't think in that way, who don't have that mindset, we're getting bigger and bigger, and we need to reclaim the planet that's ours. And these people, I think that was another point I made, that we've outgrown, not outgrown, we're not meant for these mega structures of corporations. And in a lot of ways, that's why the computer was invented. That it could deal with exact populations and distribution, and in so many ways, the middleman and the corporation is what's running everyone. And it's really politics in a country. And they choose the rulers and they train them, and everybody is getting to know what this system really looks like with communication. Before it was a divide and conquer, and let's hide it and nobody can see this. And now it's all coming up, and it's just coming up like what we feed young adolescent males and make them come and attack us. That's a good description of what we're doing. And we are completely creating this. And so if the trends become different and we decide that, let's use the same techniques of brainwashing in order to start having citizenry and goodness and care about the environment and making ecosystems, making towns and cities with I care about what's going on inside your head kind of mental health centers that aren't government owned and snooped on, where people really solve their problems or get good advice from young people who have jobs because they work in their communities. These kinds of things can really happen if you have leaders who are far thinking enough. And that's why I believe I've been called upon to be a leader in a troubled time. And I could say that I'm ready and I've been prepared. And that might be a comfort to people. I hope that it could be, because it's become like too much of a routine when we have these massacres, and when we have one person destroy a city or a town or a school. Do people actually know what it means when a child fears going to school? That's what we've instilled in our young people. The more we invest in young people and in progress and in programs that enrich and provide a life force, and those investments come back to us with citizens who care about their country, who care about their city, who care about other people. But we've created what corporations, that's the kind of person they want. Someone who you could break and enter and make them do a stabbing or this or that or the ISIL. All of this is created. And if there wasn't the corporation, that filters down this meaning of the person that we've somehow bought into, excuse me, we've somehow bought into it. And it's time that we reclaim people's minds from brainwashing and making violent children, or children that don't feel, that have no empathy, that have no uh, idea what our history is, who don't want to learn things. We have to kindle the light of learning and of refugees or people who are new that comes to this country. If we had an idea of citizenry, we wouldn't have people who come here, live here, and then really begin to be disenfranchised and hating us. Uh, there are these cycles that have been created, and they are what filters down from the top levels. There's evil on the top levels. It's going to filter down. It's our politics. Look at how politicians speak. Go in a time machine and see what their thoughts were and what. I mean, granted, they're much more in touch and modernized, but at the same time, they're all potholes. They're all fed by different corporate concerns and drug companies and controllers, people who want to control everyone. And everything is about money. And I just, this is maybe a first film, and it's so I'm a little clumsy, and maybe I should be more prepared with what I speak. I'm a little ad hoc at this point in time. But we have to gather our strengths and create schools and we can't, this government is so corrupt, and it's one big Third Reich that evolved into the CIA industrial complex. And I did see a line that is there, and it's in our hospitals, it's in everything. It's in it's old forms, and they no longer work with the new, and they're the ones that are trying to control everything. But I have seen it, and I have studied it, and information has come to me, and it does come to me. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm supposed to help. I can do you take it to the highest level and see how you can help. And so I try to give ideas. I try to bring forth a new creation that's based on goodness, principles, standards, health, life force. Those are all the things that are about God. And right now, I believe there's a visit from what could be called the devil. I've never believed in the devil. But this is evil with a door on it. And it's been opened, and the Pandora's out of its box. And we have to find new substitutes, because what we're doing isn't working. It's creating a violent society. It's creating citizens who don't care about people. And I understood those boys, because I've seen them at every stage of their life having psychiatric problems, and I saw them as totally disenfranchised youth, not having a purpose, being unable to feel other humans, being isolated. These were the kids that were kicked over in schools, or nobody would have them, or dropouts. And I was raised in the golden age of the mental health system in the 60s, with therapies, and it carried over into the 70s and 80s. And then in the 90s, they went for the prison industrial complex, and they took all the money out of mental health. And that's why I got out. There were no jobs. And all of them were prisons. So when you take these mentally ill people and dump them on policemen, that's the worst combination you can have, because these are young men. Policemen are the same way, they're human. And if you expose them to all this violence constantly, it gets to you. And we are seeing that with policemen not knowing their boundaries. We see that with them overacting and being dramatically authoritarian, because they're being handled by their superiors. And those superiors have superiors, and it goes all the way up. And so this is the evil that is filtering down. And it happens in every institution there is, that all of this is filtering down into dysfunctional people. And we're going through a great change in the computer age. We all have seen it. A lot of us have seen it from the beginning, so we know the differences, and that's helpful to see, and to see what people need. And young policemen, how are we going to teach them about humanity? Where are you going to learn that if on Friday and Saturday night you go see violence after a 5-day work week? Where do you get that part of your humanity? Do you abuse your children? Do you get short-circuited? It seems like that's everywhere. Um, so it's pervasive. And so you redo a lot of different systems when cultural epochs change. And I believe we're going through this change. And we're at the end of the dialectic that is on the evil end. It goes back and forth. Uh, a nice place to go would be in the middle. That would be great. But we have to develop that middle, just like we have to develop the middle class, the middle path. Uh, Not too much, not the compassionate capitalism. You can't have a money-hungry capitalism that turns into a machine and kills the people it's serving. You have to have citizenry. You have to have smaller companies where people can see them. You can't have one big, when you take all the cows and you put all the meat, hamburger meat in one bowl, it's no good. And I think we've learned that you can't have one big pool and these big bosses with all of these mega corporations, that people get lost in the politics. And you will get lost in the politics as long as there's this kind of corporate influence. And with the computer, we can have smaller, more local, that join together. And local communities. And I'm not talking about communism, because communism is about the pool of hamburger meat and the authority and the racket on top of it. That doesn't work either. But a self-conscious capitalism that is compassionate, where you say corporations can do this, this, and this, but they can't do this, this, and this. And to redefine and reestablish those boundaries would be a very important aspect also. So I've gone on for a while, and I hope this is good as a first installment, and I will refine some of these things. And I wish I had questions from people. I have so many stories, and good stories, and I'm here for that. And this is this time in my life where I'm struggling with where I'm going to land in the outside world as far as my housing goes and ability to support myself, and being some sort of a leader for change. I'm not a politician. I'm what I said. could say an educator, a leader, a feminist, strong feminist. I would like to redesign with other people uh, a United States that has a really uh, good infrastructure and is ready for climate change. And I guess I'll end with where I began, with this idea that the goal is to be able to control the temperature of the planet. And that would mean building structures that could create ice on the poles. That would be our first goal. And this is going to take armies. So I figure if you take armies and make it as important as somebody's oil in the Middle East, that is the biggest deal there is. The very ground that we walk on, if we made that important and brought armies over there and had developed new ways of teaching and cooperating and having experiential learning assignments for citizens or for young people to engage in, and our armies could teach, there is hierarchy in a learning society, and they teach them, and everybody learns a new way of being on the planet that is radically different, that maybe we can save ourselves. We have to want to. We have to look at the weather and not listen to what somebody else is saying about it, but with what our guts are saying about it. Anybody who's been in a storm knows. And you can take those Republicans out of Congress and have them over for lunch near an avalanche, or an IHOP where the car was sinking in. The earth doesn't do that for no reasons. It did that in the Middle Ages. It sucked people in, and that's why you can see it in some of the paintings of that time. Bosch, for example, at the Prado, people were getting sunk into the earth, and that's why all these real fearful religions developed about people's behavior. So I wouldn't like that to happen either. But to have a middle ground in an educational society and take a look at how we've created machines out of religions, evil corrupt machines to fulfill political needs. It's not so different than what happened in the Renaissance or at any period in history. But maybe now is our time to take what we've learned and be the pioneers that we are. No other civilization has developed ideas about civil rights, human rights, computers, mind, library systems. And we've come so far along with so many new ideas and so many great inventions. We need to learn how to streamline them for our own good. It shouldn't be about politics or money. It should be what is the best for the planet. Look at me. Mel and I both have the flu right now, so I'm dealing with that. It's been really cold here, and the change, I got caught outside a few times, and unlike what scientists say, colds are caused when you get cold. But anyway, that's it for now. All good things.